Joining us now, Nick Freitas, House of Delegates member, won a big write-in campaign, got like 15,000 votes, unheard of, maybe more, and got reelected to another term. But he's got a big announcement for us, we understand, to make today. Nick Freitas, great to have you with us, Nick.
Hey, great to be on, John. Thanks for having me.
So, Nick, rumors swirling that you are coming on my show tonight and you have a big announcement to make. What is it?
Well, John, no, I appreciate the opportunity. I mean, we are announcing today that we are going to be running for Congress here in the Virginia 7th District in order to retake the seat away from Abigail Spanberger. She campaigned pretty hard as being a moderate and independent voice, and once she got down to D.C., I think the most predictable thing ever happened. She started voting almost in lockstep with Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic leadership. I don't think that's what the 7th District was expecting when they voted her in the first place, and I think it's time that we need to take back the 7th District for a conservative voice.
Nick, other than voting against Pelosi for Speaker, which Spanberger said she would do, and it was a show vote because Pelosi was at no risks, has Spanberger taken a vote that was not 100% in lockstep with the AOC wing of the party?
I'm sure we can find some random ones in there, but the bottom line is that about over 90% of the time she votes in lockstep with AOC, with Nancy Pelosi. There's only one time that she's cast a vote that could be considered in line with the president, and then she reversed that. So, no, it's pretty much exactly what you would expect at this point. And again, it's unfortunate because she did campaign on one platform and she's clearly legislating on a different one.
So let's talk about your race for Congress. You're from Culpeper, right? Which is which is one end, the northern end of the 7th District. A lot of people say, well, it's going to be tough to win when you don't represent the heartland of the district. How do you respond to that? And I'm talking now not in the general, but being the nominee.
Well, I think what it comes down to is that there's no such thing as a wrong part of the district. I mean, I know that's something that people throw around, and they want you to be in certain parts versus other parts, and I don't think that's accurate. I think what you need to do is you need to be able to make a good argument that resonates across the entire district, which goes all the way from Amelia County all the way up to Culpeper County, that you're going to effectively represent the people of the 7th District. And as long as you're able to make that argument effectively and you're able to remain engaged with the entire district, you can do that. When we look at the U.S. Senate race that I participated in, we won the 7th District overwhelming, and it's because the message that we talk about resonates well with voters in the 7th District. So I don't think there's such thing as a wrong part of the district. And I think that, again, as long as you're making a good, comprehensive argument and you're staying engaged with people, I don't think it matters where you live, as long as you live in the district, and I think that is important.
All right, so Nick, I happen to agree with you. I think we're beyond a time where, certain areas you want to nominate certain people because they represent this or that. I mean, the fact you live in the 7th District, what's the difference? What part of it is that you live in? I mean, I've never really thought that mattered, even when it actually did, but that was a long time ago. So I think that's kind of yesterday's news. I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. Let's get to the nominating process, right? This is going to be a convention. From what you know, give us a little insight: where, when, what, how.
Well, I think the convention will probably be held somewhere in Chesterfield or Henrico counties because it is the most central part of the district. It'll probably be held sometime in early May, which means that all of the county committees will have to have their mass meetings before that. That's how they'll select their delegates in order to go to the convention. And then obviously we'll see how the voting will go there. There's a couple different ways they could do the ballot. They could do one ballot where you rank your choices. They could do multiple ballots. I know the 7th District committee members. I know they're very dedicated to having an open and transparent process. So I think it's going to be incredibly well run. But that's the timeline everyone can expect. Probably a May convention, and then again you'll have to show up to your mass meetings in your individual counties before that in order to get registered as a delegate.
Okay, now, as you know, I hate conventions. I think all of these should be a primary where you have candidates on the ballot and you go and you vote. But that's just my preference. This is going to be a convention. So really this battle starts with signing people up, right? At the unit level, at the city or county level, signing them up to go to the meeting. I mean, there's a process to be a delegate to this convention. It's not that you just can't show up like a firehouse primary or something. You actually have to go through a pretty lengthy process. You have to go to at least the mass meeting, which they have at your whatever it is, your either county or your city, however they have it. And then you have to go through that, and then you have to go to the convention, whatever it is, and wherever it is, and spend the day there. What is your plan to recruit delegates to that convention? Because it doesn't matter how popular you are, if you don't have the delegates at the convention, you don't win.
Well, one of the things about a convention is obviously the dynamic is a little bit different from a primary, and I've participated in both.
Yep.
For a convention, one of the things that's very important to people that are going to go there is, like you said, there's more of an in-depth process. You have to go to a couple meetings. You have to spend some time, and a lot of times that means you have people going there that have been very involved and fighting for Republican values and Republican candidates within the 7th District. And I know a lot of those people because for, 4 to 5 years before I ever ran for office, I worked alongside them. I was a committee chairman. I was a precinct coordinator. I sat on the 7th District Committee. So basically, I didn't get into politics to support myself for political office. I got into politics because I wanted to support a certain set of beliefs and ideas. And so I fought alongside these people all across the 7th District for years before I ever ran for office. And then obviously I've gotten to know a lot of those people by being a delegate and by being a candidate. So we're going to reach out to the people that we know and we've worked with for years. And we're also going to reach out to a lot of people. We'll be doing events in every county to give everyone an opportunity to come forward and meet all of the candidates and to meet myself and to hear on whether or not they think I'm the best person to carry their argument to Washington, D.C.
So, Nick, one of the issues is you have a libertarian streak. And when you look at past history, libertarians in this type of environment have not done very well. How do you overcome that historical reality?
It's interesting. I've been branded with this libertarian streak, and what I think is interesting about this is, Ronald Reagan said that he thought the natural home of the Libertarian Party was in the Republican Party. What people mean when they say that, and I don't use that term, I say that I'm liberty-minded, and I've always thought that the Republican Party was liberty-minded. It's essentially focused on a pretty simple worldview, which says that we recognize government is generally not the best way to solve problems, that as long as you allow people to be free to work in voluntary cooperation, through charities, through the marketplace, that they're far better at solving their problems and achieving things than some government bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. And that's really at the heart of it. And so I don't think that there's anything strange or unusual about that to Republicans. I would hope that that's still a core part of our party's philosophy and platform. So I think it did well the last several times I've run for office. I think it naturally resonates with people, and honestly, I don't think Republicans want to see what I kind of call the Rockefeller wing of the party. It's this idea that it's Republicans ceding to the idea that, well, we're going to have big government, so we're better at running it than the left would be. Well, no, I'm not ready to surrender on this idea that individual liberty and free markets are superior to central planning and giving more power to government bureaucracies. So I don't see any problem with that message. I think being liberty-minded should be the heart and soul of what the Republican Party is, and I'm happy to represent that.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, trucking the truth across America. Great to have you with us. We're with Nick Freitas, House of Delegates member from Culpeper in the 7th District. Nick announcing today that he is launching a campaign to run for Congress in the 7th District to be the Republican nominee to face off against who we believe will be the Democratic nominee if she's not toppled in a primary on the Democratic side, Abigail Spanberger, who was the incumbent there, beating Dave Bratt in the midterm. So let me ask you this, Nick. I want to get to a couple of your opponents. Number one, Tina Ramirez has been out campaigning for months now. I don't know when she announced, I think 2017 or something, or just after Abigail won, which I think is one of the downsides of announcing so early. You become kind of old news. And then also your top competition, House of Delegates member John McGuire, getting in the race just the other day. How do you stack up against both Ramirez and McGuire?
Well, here's the thing on that. I really want to be careful because I want to make sure that whoever ends up getting the nomination is well set up to win in November. And the last thing I want is Democrats ever being able to go back and look at something I said and use that as talking points against them. Everybody's going to have an opportunity to look at all of the various candidates and see where they stack up. Here's the two questions that I always ask of a candidate when I'm a voter. It's something that has been asked of me by organizations that have wanted me to run. They have two categories. Are you principled and are you viable? And when people were asking me to run, the principal question didn't come up. And generally that's because I have a voting record. I've been in the House of Delegates for 4 years. Before that, I was an activist. So people know where I stand, and there's no question that I can take a hard vote, and there's no question that I will advocate and argue for what it is that we believe. You know, you see everything that's going on right now with the Second Amendment in Virginia. Nobody has any questions on where I stand on the Second Amendment because I've been such an advocate for it in the General Assembly. The second question with viability is one of logistics. So no matter how good a candidate might be on the issues or how well they can advocate for it, the next question is do you have what it takes to actually win an election? And so I've won a few elections at this point. I know how to run a good ground game. What I think everyone needs to understand is that once you find that candidate whose principles align with yours, that's always step one. The second question you have to ask yourself is, are they going to be able to beat a very, very well-funded Democrat opponent? And that's what Abigail Spanberger is going to be. She's going to have all the money coming in from out of state, from all the usual groups, from Bloomberg, from Soros, because the Democrats want to not just keep the seat, they want to keep the majority. They want to keep Nancy Pelosi in power. They want to be able to keep doing an impeachment circus for the entire Trump administration. And so we have to ensure that we have someone that can actually beat them, and that means you've got to have a good ground game. You've got to have good name recognition. You've got to have a fundraising base. You've got to have all of those things that may not sound as exciting, but logistically are incredibly important. And I think when it comes to all of those categories, the ground game, the name recognition, the fundraising base, I think we've demonstrated that we can do that.
Well, you ran a write-in campaign and got, 15 or 16,000 votes? Something of that nature? Right.
On election night we won with about 14% of the vote.
Right. So you were
and
able.
By the way, John, that's after registrars were throwing out votes.
Right.
We had people that actually wrote in Freitas, and they were not counting those because they didn't write Nick Freitas.
Right. I mean, right. So I mean, you had if you take all the votes that got thrown out, you got something like 15 or 16,000 write-in votes, which in a House of Delegates election in a generally rural area is unprecedented. So you've obviously demonstrated your ground muscle, because that's all ground game is winning a write-in campaign. So I don't think there's any doubt there. A lot of people have been under the radar criticizing you, saying at the end of the day, Freitas is a never Trumper. He backed Cruz. He was very late to Trump. How do you respond to that? How do you respond to that?
Well, it's nonsense. So a never Trumper is someone that refused to vote for the president. That was not me at all. There was a lot of Republicans that had different choices in the primary. The question is what did you do on election night, and what have you done since then? And on election night, I voted for President Trump. And since then, I've supported the president. I've spoken on the House floor in support of him. I've given the State of the Union response for the House of Delegates. In fact, earlier this year, the Trump campaign asked me if I would go, and I would protest, and I would speak against Abigail Spanberger for her support of impeachment, and I was very happy to do that. So I think what everyone needs to understand is that I'm very supportive of what this president has been doing, and I think it's amazing to me the absolute hatred with which some on the left view this president, to where they can't even stop for a moment. And on issues they claim to care about, criminal justice reform, foreign policy, I see a president who has done more for criminal justice reform than any president, Republican or Democrat, in recent memory. Does he get any credit from the press, any credit from the left? Absolutely not. I see a president, and this is someone, John, I'm a combat veteran. So I take foreign policy and I take sending troops into harm's way very seriously. And you know what? So does this president. So that when the establishment is constantly telling him to send more troops, Donald Trump is the guy standing back there going, wait a second, until I see a mission or a pathway to victory, I'm not going to spend American life so cheaply. Does he get any credit from the left, any credit from the press? Absolutely not. So, no, and then not only that, when you look at the tax policy and you look at the regulatory reform and you look at the positive economic benefits that this president has achieved for this country by relying on the free market, not government, it's not the sort of central planning that you see Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren pushing for.
Right.
That has a very real positive effect on the lives of people in my district, in this country. And so, no, I've been very supportive of the president's efforts on his policies and will continue to be so. The bottom line is, I think he proved himself. I think he has demonstrated that he loves this country. I think he's demonstrated that no matter how much heat and garbage he takes from the left, he will continue to push on. He doesn't surrender to him. And look, I respect that. I respect that a great deal, and I look forward to supporting him.
We're with Nick Freitas. Nick is running for Congress. He's a House of Delegates member. There are 4 announced candidates in, and we'll get to that later. But he's the favorite, in my mind, going into the convention. That this will be the nominee will be chosen by a district convention, we think sometime in early May. So getting back to Trump, Nick, on the record, if you were elected to Congress and defeat Spanberger or the Democratic nominee in November 2020, could we expect that Nick Freitas will have Trump's back in a second term?
Yes. Yes, there's no question. I want Trump to continue to do the things he's doing, again, on tax policy, on regulatory policy, foreign policy. And I'm supportive of it, and he can count on my support.
So let me ask you this, Nick Freitas. How do you beat, assuming Abigail Spanberger is the Democratic nominee, and I expect her to be, and she is going to outspend you or any Republican at least 5-1, okay, because they're going to get so much money, or maybe 3-1, but you're not going to outspend her. So how do you defeat Abigail Spanberger in 2020 in that election? What would be your argument to say, hey, I'm best equipped to defeat Spanberger in 2020?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One, and this goes back to the logistics part I was talking about earlier, I will tell you right now that based off the commitments we already have, there is no way she is outspending us 5-1. We're going to be very competitive on the fundraising side with Abigail. The other side of it is this. One of the biggest questions I think voters have to ask themselves right now is, who do you want on the debate stage with Abigail Spanberger? Who do you want in a position where the press puts the microphone in your face without any notice and tries to get you to slip up or gap or whatever it is? Who do you want basically taking those calls and making the argument for what you believe? So I think part of it is just being able to be quick on your feet. It's being able to make the argument for conservative principles. Again, not watered down conservative principles, but actually drawing a contrast between what the left is asking for right now and the sort of country that we actually are and want to be. The other side of this is the first time Abigail ran, she didn't have a record. Right? She ran on her past experience with the intelligence community. She ran on trying to be a reasonable and moderate and independent voice for the 7th District. She ran on a lot of things that once she got to Washington, D.C., quite frankly, she didn't fulfill. And so now she has a record to run on, and now she's going to have to explain why she's been all over the place on the Green New Deal. She's going to have to explain why she wants to threaten local school districts with losing federal funding if they don't allow boys to compete in girls' sports. She's going to have to explain why she wants taxpayer-funded, campaign spending. These are a lot of issues that never came up when she was running against Dave Brad. I mean, she certainly didn't campaign on, but once she got up there, she fell right in line with. And I think that, again, she's going to have to own that and explain why it is that she thinks that was more important to the 7th District. And I think one of the biggest ones she's got to explain, John, is her sudden reversal on impeachment and going along with this sideshow that has been taking place in Washington, D.C., because that's one of the biggest things I think the Democrats have to answer for, is that their complete lack of legislative achievement, because they've been absolutely obsessed, not just with impeaching the president, they've been obsessed with overturning a duly elected president because they don't like the outcome. And so I think she has to answer for all of that.
Final question we have to go. Abigail Spanberger, if she votes for impeachment, which I believe she will, how would you hold her accountable to that, Nick?
Oh, I think it goes by in reminding every single voter that she promised that she would not be this sort of hyper partisan, falling in line with Nancy Pelosi on every issue. That she lied, essentially. That she either went down there and had no intention of making good on her campaign promises, or she went down there and was so easily manipulated by the process that she completely failed to live up to the promises that she made to the people of the 7th District. And in the meantime, instead of actually doing the hard work of legislating and finding common ground and getting things done, instead she is going right in with the hyper-partisan, Adam Schiff cabal that is essentially not just trying to, I want people to not think of it as them just trying to impeach the president.
Mm-hmm.
I want people to think of it as they are trying to overturn a duly elected president. They are manipulating a process because A, they didn't like the outcome, and B, I think they're admitting right now they don't think they can beat him in 2020.
Nick Freitas, thanks for being with us. Nick Freitas announcing his candidacy today for U.S. Congress 7th District. That'll be decided in a convention in May somewhere in the 7th District. Nick, thanks for being with us. People want more info. Where do they go?
Go to nick4va.com. We have our website up now. There's some really interesting information up there, both for what's going to be happening with the convention, as well as some introductory, some bio information on me and my family as well. So it gives you a chance to get to know me a little bit better.
All right, Nick, thank you.